Welcome back to another special for the This Week in Weeb podcast.
Love special.
Yes, another love special. And this, we're going to the opposite end of the spectrum. We are going from BL to GL because we're going to be talking about Miguel's first impressions of two Yuri series.
This is more than GL, good sir. This is straight up Yuri, like you said. The given, just to add this kind of disclaimer and notification there, given was BL. There's affection and love between two male characters, BL. As I understand it, as it was explained to me, Yaoi would then say, we're going to go past that and like have to blur out stuff or make it a very bright highlight kind
so
of
like
thing.
love stage
like
and beyond.
Love stage. One of these was more GL. One of them is definitely going into straight up Yuri. So it's a lot.
Yeah. So the two series that we are going to be talking about, the first episodes of, because we're going to get the first impressions from Miguel, are the two series that I was pushing him to watch, and that is Bloom Into You and Citrus.
Yes.
And they are two very different series.
Very, very different.
Bloom Into You is dear to my heart. I've read the whole manga and watched the season of the anime that aired, and I really liked it, and it inspired me to start looking into more Yuri and potentially doing some kind of a long form video essay, and that was the series that inspired me to do that. And now Miguel has gotten to watch them, and what are your initial thoughts? Let's start with Bloom Into You.
Okay, so Bloom Into You I actually did like a lot more. I think Bloom Into You definitely looks so far like it's going to have a bit more of a storyline to it. There seems to be a bit more of a progression of the characters and how they got there. Off of the first episode alone, and it's obviously a bit spoilers for anyone who hasn't seen it, at the very end there seems to be, at least they're implying, a strong attraction between two of the main characters off the bat, which for me seemed to happen out of nowhere. They were one character, the one with the pinkish red hair, was asking the dark haired character some advice regarding a guy that she wanted to tell that she's not into him and it's not going to go past his confession of love. And she gave her some recommendations, suggestions, held her hand. She did it. We were good. Suddenly, the dark haired one grabs her, pulls her close, and talks about how, hey, you know that feeling you weren't getting? I think I'm starting to get it. And that just, it was a very kind of like out of left field. I thought this would be a bit more of a build up. So maybe they're going to mean like a strong friendship, maybe like a sisterhood thing. I'm not sure, but it did kind of go from 0 to 100 very quickly, but it wasn't, for lack of a better word, vulgar. So I liked it.
So the big thing that will start to become apparent as you watch more of the show is why it seems to come out of nowhere. Because when I was watching it, I didn't stop at the first episode. Like, we were watching it for a night, so we got through like 3 or 4 episodes or something like that. But watching it just the first episode, I can definitely see how it comes off as really sudden. And while I was watching it, I was like, wow, that just kind of like happened. And it comes down to some of the things that you said during the conversation and the phone conversation. She calls him on the phone, right?
Yeah.
And the Toko overhears. Toko's dark hair,
Okay.
and you is the red hair. And Toko hears some of the things that she says, and it strikes a chord for some reasons that you'll learn more about later on.
Oh, okay. What I did like, and it was a silly hope, but I feel like it was a fair one, was there's a part where Toko mentions that she's never felt that way and she doesn't understand why she doesn't feel that way. And there's something about society, how they make you feel bad for not wanting to feel that way. For me, I have a few friends who are Arrow Ace, which I believe is like...
It's a big undertone in the show.
Which I thought, like, you know what, hey, good on them for having representation for that, because that's not something you see. People that are either hypersexualized or they're just very lovey-dovey, and there's no kind of absence of it. And if there is, they're seen as very robotic and cold. It's not like, hey, this is just how I feel. And in this particular case, I thought that's the direction they're going to go to. Not by any means that she had to be cured or changed this. Maybe she did identify as being Arrow Ace or anything else, and now she has somebody who has sparked something in her to evolve and change as a person. Which is why, again, I was a little caught off guard where we were in that kind of Arrow Ace area for a second, and then she grabs her close, but now I feel something else. Like, oh, I guess we're over that. So I'm excited to see where they go with that and what happens, and what you're mentioning. There's something that kind of rings true with her, or just kind of gets her attention about it. But I did enjoy it.
So there's a great representation from everything that I've understood, and watching content creators that are Arrow and Ace, that they think it's a good representation. And the character of Maki, which I don't think has been introduced yet. It's the boy.
No.
Yeah. And there's a character named Maki, and there's a lot of discussion around his his outlook on love and things like that, and how it contrasts with Yu, because Yu has a belief, and I believe they talk about this in the first episode, how what she believes she should feel when she feels love, because she's basing it off manga and things like that. Like, she has a romanticized feeling of what she should feel when she's in love with somebody, and that's a thing that she struggles with. Like, how much of that is realistic? How much of that is idealistic? Can I actually feel love? Because I've never felt what's in the stories or things like that. So that's kind of a dichotomy between what Toko feels and the reason why she feels that way, what Yu feels, what Maki feels, and you get from different perspectives. And it's the thing that I really like about the show. And seeing that you come at it from a perspective where you're already kind of looking at analyzing the different types of romance, different types of feelings that they might be having, and like platonic versus aromantic versus romantic. That's kind of the mentality that you want to watch it with, because it's a big dialogue with this show.
Like I said, I liked the characters. The characters were really cute. They had, they seemed like genuine teenagers. They weren't teenagers who were trying to be super sexualized or crazy adults like another certain show you made me watch. And they weren't naive teenagers with no common sense. Who like they were regular. They have school. They have things they want to figure out, and now they have this pressing idea of like, oh man, somebody professed their love to me. How do I interpret this? How do I process this? Let me ask someone who I look up to, who may, apparently has been turning down people left and right. And again, that's actually also why I was kind of hoping that Toko was aromantic or asexual, because of the fact that would obviously very easily explain why she's been turning down people. Maybe she hasn't outright said it, but like, I turn people down because I appreciate what they feel, but it's not for me. And so I kind of like got into that mentality for a bit, but I should have maybe held back reservations until learning more. As again, it's only one episode in our
should you watch video, which may or may not be up at this point, that we made
go
for
watch it.
Yes, if it is, go watch the Should You Watch on Bloom Into You. But there's a lot of dark subject matter that they discuss in the show, and I think the good thing about this show versus a lot of others is they don't just glaze over them and don't talk about them. When things come up, they talk about them, and it's focused on. And I think things get the time that they are deserved of. When something is said, then the characters think about it. The characters then talk about it later, and it informs their actions. They don't just say things or act in a certain way and just push past it like it never happened. And I feel like a lot of shows will do that, like whether it's for the sake of time or for the sake of not wanting to change the tone. This has a tone that never really hits the peaks of zany kind of, like not something like Love Stage would hit. Like Love Stage would hit these ridiculous highs, and so when they would have dark subject matter that would get brought in, it never really got the gravity that it really deserved, because the show's not made like that.
It's too much of a change in tone.
Yeah, like you can't drop down into that. The level that Bloom Into You is at is it's always kind of a melodramatic tone to a degree. So when it has its peaks, yes, you get to see friendship, you get to see love, you get to see like these great experiences of their age and things like that. But it never moves far enough away that you can't get introspective. And that's the thing that I really like about it. If you want a good representation of a romance besides the characters that I've talked about so far that you can look forward to in Bloom Into You, there's Donuts Under the Crescent Moon, which is a manga. And that is just it has no anime adaptation. I just read the manga, and that's a complete exploration of a romance, ace, and the interpretations of it, exploring it, understanding it, what makes it different from platonic love, relationships, platonic friendships, what makes it different from romantic friendships and relationships. And it's a complete exploration of that, which is very interesting. And a big thing that I heard from content creators that were in that community is that Bloom Into You doesn't treat a romance like it's a stepping stone to romance. Like, it doesn't treat it like, oh, well, you're aromantic now, but you'll figure it out.
You'll find the right person.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
It treats it like it's a thing that's natural, and a person can be that, and they don't have to evolve into their next form.
Well, that's why, and I guess I had definitely jumped the gun a bit, but that's why I was a bit, not disappointed, but I was a bit let down to a degree when I thought that that's the direction they were going with Toku. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, she was like this until now she met this person, and now she's better. And it's like, well, if she was aromantic or anything along those lines, she was fine the way she was. And I'm happy and I'm excited to kind of find out more about it it to kind of see where they go with it, what's the details behind it, because right now we know nothing. All we know is that Toko turns down people left and right, and you has turned out this one guy's been waiting for a month, which God bless him. If I was waiting for a month, when that girl calls me, my phone will be disconnected. There's nothing else, but
lose my number.
Yeah, exactly. But you know, I'm curious to see where it progresses, because they also seem much more minded to discuss what's happening than just have it happen.
If you want to go in completely unspoiled and having your mind completely fresh to the experience, and since we're going to be talking about it while you do it, I would recommend you not watch our Should You Watch content.
No. So I usually hold off on watching specific things that I feel I may watch of yours. So I didn't watch Hokkaido Girls until I started watching Hokkaido Girls. I got a few episodes into it. Then I watched it.
We only talked about the first episode in that one, so that wasn't too bad.
I disagree with some of the views on there, which I will keep to myself.
We're going to talk about Hokkaido Girls in an upcoming episode soon.
I love Hokkaido Girls. I love the animation. It's the best show ever. Same thing. I know that you guys did make the Bloom Into You episodes. I was like, I'm going to hold off on this until I watch more. I think you guys do the 3-episode test, right?
Bloom Into You, we did it after. Same thing with Citrus.
After the series?
Bloom Into You and Citrus, because they aired a while ago. So with seasonal, we update throughout the season. But with Bloom Into You and Citrus, they were already out by the time we watched them.
Oh, man, I'm going to have to wait for a while.
So we watched the whole season and talked about it. And
I'll watch more.
I'd probably recommend if they go up before you're done.
Because I'm definitely curious about your thoughts. And for anyone who has seen Bloom Into You or Citrus, there are videos that are up. So I definitely recommend you pause this one, go take a look, and come back with your own thoughts.
They're usually pretty short.
Try not to spoil anything just yet. That's the only one little ask I have.
So moving from Bloom Into You, let's move from nice, quiet, talking tone to Citrus.
Jesus Christ.
What are your thoughts of Citrus? Because I will say, going into Citrus, I was expecting something different than I got, because I was essentially looking for anime that have the same subject matter as Bloom Into You, because I liked it so much. And that was one of the top recommendations, but it's a very different show.
So Citrus, I feel that you recommended to me because I recommended Love Stage. Citrus,
they honestly are kind of the same thing. It's like Given and Love Stage versus Bloom Into You and Citrus.
Citrus, I feel like you recommended because I've done something to wrong you in the past, so I apologize. It's not necessarily bad. I mean, I'm only one episode in, but it's not.
I will say it's not the
best.
It's not good like Bloom Into You is.
Well, the reason why I say not good, because I don't want to say that it's not good based on the subject matter, or maybe the storyline is, because again, Love Stage is extremely problematic, but it's fun. I'm hoping it's similar for Citrus. I don't know, but from episode 1, oh man, that's a rough ride. I feel like the creators of Citrus had a bunch of darts, and they have a dartboard with all crazy ideas and plot lines, and threw them all at once and said, you know what, let's do them all. And that's too much. It's too much. I mean,
and Citrus ran, and I don't know if it's still running, but has been running longer than Bloom Into You. Bloom Into You, I think, had 50 manga chapters, something like that. Citrus has had 3 separate manga series.
So as far as episodes, at least I've seen, I think Bloom Into You has 12 episodes and Citrus has 13.
Yeah.
So
and you get to roughly around the same manga chapter in both. Like you get into like the mid 20s.
So is there gonna be more Citrus?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
Like I said, these always get canceled after one season.
Oh, so they're gone.
Yeah, they're gone.
Oh,
I mean, they're in the limbo that like No Game No Life is in. Like, I could get a second season, even though they spoiled a thing from that would take place in like season 5 at the end of the series.
Don't tell me the spoiler. I'm really still hoping for.
Did you ever watch No Game No Life?
I watched season 1. Yeah.
So like they show it in the season. Like the thing that happens at the end of No Game No Life season 1 would happen in the equivalent of like season 4 if they were to continue making it.
Well, that's gonna be hard then.
Yeah.
I mean, but you know what? I think as anime fans, you have to have that kind of blind faith sometimes, because again, we're also holding out for that Yuri on Ice movie at some point, someday. Who knows? Given's gonna get its movies, so who knows? Maybe Citrus will get more. Judging by the first episode, I kind of hope not, because I'm gonna just do a quick rundown of the plot point / twist that came out in the first episode.
Yep.
A girl's mom marries a guy.
Uh-huh.
She gets a new last name. She's never met this guy. She has to move schools completely. She's being judged by the way she dresses and everything else off the bat.
She does the whole Gyaro thing.
Which I was so excited. I was like, oh man, another Gyaro girl. Then like, nope, get rid of the makeup. You're done. All right, so that's out the window. She likes a teacher, excited for her first kiss. Sees a teacher making out with a student. What? So off the bat, we have now very questionable problematic things regarding age and consent. But you know what? We're gonna let that one slide. we're gonna let it slide. We're gonna let that one slide because fine, maybe he's a young teacher. Maybe she got held back.
I mean, whatever. He was, but yeah.
I don't. All I know is he's a teacher, which no matter what is not good. But then they throw everything else at you. Now that girl who's giving you a hard time, she's also your sister.
Stepsister.
And
one of the most popular tags
I didn't realize
in the country. So
and the mom is getting along with her, and then she's like gonna be mean to you, but then she's gonna also kiss you. Then she's gonna assault you with this kiss. Then she's gonna like belittle you. Like there's so many things going on at once. It hurt my head a little bit. It was too much.
It is a lot. There's a lot in this show, and I don't even know if they.
And that was her first kiss.
Yes, I told you about the stolen first kiss thing.
I didn't know it was that.
I said stolen first kiss is like
I thought
trope
they got
in all of these.
Flashback, or maybe so for the sake of Citrus, I was referring to them as Aerith and Tifa, because one is blonde and one is like dark blonde, water fine, and one is dark hair. And the first thing I thought about was for Hokkaido girls, how there's also the Gyaro blonde girl and then the dark hair girl, purple eyes. I'm like, oh my god! So again, I was excited for it, but then we just had so much happen at once and so hard. Like it wasn't by any means subtle. Like the stolen first kiss, I sometimes think, okay, fine, stolen first, like someone they get surprised and they get kissed, and oh my god, what's happening? And then that's it. No, this was a straight up assault. She's like writhing and really trying to push her off and everything else. And then she's like, how's that for your first kiss? And she just walks away, leaves her there. I'm like, Jesus Christ, guys.
You watching both of these at the same time is going to be interesting because I watched Bloom Into You first, then I watched Citrus. And in between, I had read the rest of Bloom Into You and then read Donuts Under the Crescent Moon. Okay. And then I watched Citrus. So I had a little bit of a buffer in between. You watching them at the same time is going to be interesting to see some of the same subject matter that gets touched on in both series and how they're handled differently.
Well, I think I would imagine it's similar to what you felt when you were watching Given and Love Stage, and you had one that's like romantic and building up, like, oh man, this is kind of deep and okay, interesting. And then I was like, well, you're asleep, it's okay. Like this is okay. Oh, and the one I've nicknamed Tifa, she's the granddaughter of the school director
who runs the school, and she's the school president.
What's going on here? They grabbed almost every trope and every idea and so just do it all. it's
the characters are Yuzu and Mei.
Which one is Tifa?
Tifa's dark hair you're talking about is Mei.
Okay.
And Yuzu is blonde hair.
Okay.
And
we'll call them by their names.
It definitely hit a different demographic and different way of handling things. And the dichotomy is very similar to watching Love Stage and Given at the same time, where one was, I think, handling things in a more subtle, introspective manner, where the other one was just kind of like just rapid firing through things.
Yeah.
But Love Stage also had stuff happening outside of the relationship that was interesting. It had stuff that was like where the characters had their own stuff going on outside of just this will they won't they thing in the middle. Citrus is entirely invested in Yuzu and Mei. Entirely. And the reason why I kept watching it, even though there were some aspects of it that weren't what I was looking for, because I was looking for Bloom Into You too, but I got something that was not anything like that, was because I got invested in the dichotomy between them. They do flesh out their characters. They flesh out Mei a lot more.
Okay, I don't like Mei at all right now.
You do find out why things are the way that they are to a degree. And I wish there was I wish it was more like Love Stage, where there was these highs that happened, where it was funny and there was the gags and things, and there's just not that.
Yeah, like the parts that maybe could be presented as a gag or kind of funny were just so pointed that it just makes you feel uncomfortable. Like the very first scene where they're picking on her clothes, her hair, her makeup, everything, and then Mei comes along and she's like, maybe you don't belong here. They're like, Jesus, this girl just got here. Like, give her a day. And she's right. Like, how am I supposed to know the rules if I didn't know them? Like, fine. And then she pulls her in, looking for her phone, but she feels her up completely, including her ass. I'm like, do you think think she hit her phone there? And it caught me off guard where it wasn't even funny because you see that she's very uncomfortable. This is not like, oh man, what's going on? I kind of like it. No, this is like, what is she doing? And it just walks away and just leaves her there. And
a lot of that is like May does an action and then leaves. And you have to get Yuzu's inner monologue. And the thing I'm very interested in, and you don't really get very much of it in the first episode, I don't think you get any of it in the first episode, is how Yuzu interprets the actions and internalizes them.
Okay.
You get a lot of that from an inner monologue perspective where she's talking about what happened, what could I have done, what did I do to start this, she's very introspective and putting it on herself a lot of the time, and I'm very interested to get your thoughts on that.
You had mentioned there's like a lot of victim blaming herself kind of stuff in this.
Yeah, because it's not other people, it's her. She blames herself constantly for everything that happens.
Which is going to be so much more uncomfortable and just like, it's not funny. And it's not like, it's not the guy from Love Stage giving little kisses to him. Well, it's a very horrible and, it is assaulting and non-consensual, but he's being cute about it in a funny, like they present it as a funny thing. And it's like, okay, just one more. No, that one got one more. So it's funny. Here, this Yuzu is definitely like shaken up by all of this. And on top of that, they are kind of expanding upon the fact that she's having inner conflicts with what's going on. There's a scene where she's in the bathtub and she's thinking about what happened, how she caught her kiss.
That was the first episode?
Yeah.
Oh.
She catches May kiss the teacher guy.
Oh, yeah.
And then she's in the bathtub. She's like, why do I keep kissing? Why do I keep thinking about it? What's wrong with me? And I'm like, whoa, wait a second. Like, what if it was? And I just, oh man, like knowing now what we know now as like adults and everything else and things that we obviously as a society, we should have known long ago, to hear someone, especially at that age that they're supposed to be at, going through the ideas of exploring themselves, sexuality, and everything. And one of their first thoughts is, what's wrong with me? It's heartbreaking. It was rough.
Very apparent early on that she would always put an air on for her friends at her previous school.
Yes.
Where she would talk about how many boyfriends she had and all the things that she'd done and everything, but she had never experienced any of it. And now to make this big transition, she's living in a new home, even though it's a really nice home. She's living in a new apartment. She's going to a new school that's very uptight and has a lot of expectations on her where she has to change everything about herself. She's now starting to experience the first budding feelings towards romance and sexuality. And she's put into a situation where she's not only in a schoolmate relationship with May, who has been very forward with her and very emotionally shut off while physically assaulting her.
Yeah,
aggressive, very physically forward, but been emotionally closed off. She's living with that person. And
a person who's been bullying her.
Yeah. And you're getting to see her go through this very hectic transition. And I think that, like, listen, if I'm going to give the manga writers and the anime writers credit, or if I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt, they made the first episode feel like she feels. We got hit with a lot.
Yeah.
She got hit with a lot. It puts you into the same kind of mentality, like, did all that stuff just happen? Like, how do I interpret all that stuff happening? And if you want to say that they're trying to invoke the same kind of emotion, I can see that. It definitely was advertised on everything that I saw going in that this was going to be a very Yuri forward, very sexual baity kind of show.
Yeah.
And that's what I went into it understanding, because I saw a lot of the fan art. I saw a lot of the promotional art, and like the stuff they show in the ending credits, that like style of art that they do in the ending credits. I saw a lot of artwork that was like them pressed against each other, or was like poses and suggested poses and stuff. And I was like, okay, so they're just going to the Yuri, but they're going like far into the Yuri, and they're going to be very like kissy and touchy and all that kind of stuff. And I knew that going in that it was going to be more that way. I didn't realize how dark it was going to get. And it gets very dark. And you get to see another side of how young people can interpret sexuality as not necessarily a thing that has emotion behind it or not something that's healthy.
Yeah.
Because sexuality doesn't always have to be healthy, especially for young people.
Exactly. When you don't know how to process it, you don't know how to, if it's that kind of idea of sometimes how younger people people hypersexualize. Let me rephrase that. Young people are hypersexualized by society, and in turn believe that they have to hypersexualize themselves because that's how they're going to get attention or affection from people or anything else, is by using their sexuality, which unfortunately at that stage in their life they're not mentally or emotionally prepared for on how to process it. And that's one of the feelings that I got from it, from what we've seen, from the even opening itself. When you're talking about like just different feelings altogether, I actually watched Citrus first before I watched Bloom Into You based on the cover art that I saw, because Bloom Into You,
it was marketed a certain way.
Well, Bloom Into You had them both kind of like pressed against each other, kind of getting kind of close. So I assumed that was a more like etchy, sketchy, Yuri one. And then Citrus had them all sitting on the school steps, kind of looking like regular. It's like, oh, maybe this is more like slice of life kind of stuff, like K-On! Or something. You know, it's like, okay, let me see this. I was wrong. And in that
it's the exact opposite.
In the first opening, the kisses that they have aren't like soft, sweet kisses. No, these are like very lustful, tongues touching tongues, everything kisses. I'm like, whoa, this is the opening. Like, this is too early. Just like it was for Magical Girls. This is way too early for this kind of anime right now. I guess you won't, but to preface it, don't spoil anything.
I won't.
But I've never read nor have I seen 50 Shades of Grey, but I know of it. Again, through pop culture osmosis, I know of it. I know what happens. I know how it's seen very negatively by the actual BDSM community because it takes in certain tropes, not certain tropes, but certain ideas of BDSM and twisting it to something dark and horrible.
Because the writer doesn't understand it.
Exactly. Into something that is becoming potentially traumatic and hurtful to somebody for the sake of, oh, well, I love them. And it's fine.
Her understanding of the culture comes from reading fan fiction, and that's not a healthy place. I know more about 50 Shades of Grey than the average person who's never watched or read it because I've watched a lot of analyzing videos on it.
Well, so when I was watching Citrus, especially when you're in their rooms and you see how Yuzu's room is like colorful and messy and everything else, and the other one's just like black and white and gray and everything else. For me, based on what I know, it definitely has 50 Shades kind of tone to it, in the sense that you have my guess, my kind of taking what I have and making an assumption out of it is that May has a very twisted idea of what sexuality is going to use that against or with because she feels that it's appropriate for Yuzu, and in that kind of inappropriateness, that twistedness is going to be like, well, it's because I love her, and I don't want that. I feel like that's the direction they're going, and that, from what I understand, is obviously the biggest issue with 50 Shades of Grey, taking something that's supposed to be based off of trust and communication and openness and everything else into something twisted and say, oh, I love them, and it's not okay. And those are the vibes that I'm getting. I hope I'm wrong. I hope there's gonna be more to it. I know you mentioned that May has more stuff in her background, makes you understand certain things more, but if I'm not mistaken, so did the guy in 50 Shades. So
I think where 50 Shades goes wrong is misunderstanding the material that she's writing about, but also stating it like it's fact, like using terms and defining them in a way that isn't real.
Okay.
And I think that's why it bothers the community as much as it does. With something like this, I'm not going to confirm or deny your suspicions or anything, but I think when the pieces start to come together, you start to understand why the characters are the way that they are, and it makes sense in the long run. Okay. I haven't finished it. I plan to finish the manga at some point, but I have finished the anime.
Okay.
So you understand why they are the way that they are to a degree. My biggest gripes with the series is they introduce characters throughout the show that I don't think are necessary, that end up getting like 2 or 3 episodes where they're a focal point
and then just throw it away.
They're just gone. I mean, they're still there, I guess, but I don't think the time was very well spent, and they're also from the manga, so I know that they were included in the source material. I just don't think they're very well used. But the main dynamic in the middle, as much as it bothers me at times, I understand where they get to, at least by the end of the anime, and I understand where they're coming from.
By the end of the anime, without giving too much away,
I feel like there's no way to answer the question you're about to ask.
You can do it. I have faith in you. By the end of the anime, is there something that may make May more likable? Because right now I'm seeing her as almost like the villain of the show.
May throughout the series has a build up in one direction, and then there's a handful of episodes where she seems really out of character.
Okay.
And they never really address why she's out of character for those episodes.
that.
And I don't necessarily understand why they went the direction they did for the handful of episodes that they did scattered throughout. Not really episodes, but handful of scenes where she's in and she like takes a weird direction on how she acts. But by the end of the show, I liked her more than when I started.
Okay, well, right now I don't like her at all.
Yeah. So there's only you can only go up
from here.
Yeah.
Well, no, actually, let me not jinx myself just because the next episode will be like, oh, so when she was kicking babies, I'm like, okay, well now we've reached a new low.
You understand her, and you understand her through Yuzu's eyes by the end of the anime, and you understand how she sees the world, which is a little bit the frustrating thing about this anime is you don't talk about anything. That's the thing that bothers me, and it's a lot of shows where nobody talks about anything.
I think my biggest concern is that in the process of learning why May is the way she is or anything else and seeing it through Yuzu's eyes, that it's going to end up becoming, oh, it's okay, she's done these things because of this. And that's the one part that I've never liked in any kind of anime or show, is making someone else's actions okay because of their past. And it's like you said, you can understand it, but it does not make it okay.
So I don't think we ever get to that point where the show frames it that way.
Okay.
Yuzu frames it that way sometimes, but that doesn't necessarily mean that the show's framing it that way.
Okay.
I never got as a viewer to the point where I was like, everything she's doing is okay because of this.
Okay.
So I assume the show and the manga that it's coming from was not trying to push that as a agenda or narrative that they were trying to push. But you are seeing a lot of things through Yuzu's eyes, and you're seeing her work through things and excuse things, not excuse other things, excuse things in her own behavior, not in her own behavior. And it's really centered on Yuzu working out the details of what she's feeling, what the relationship's going to be like, the balancing the rest of the stuff around her. And that is the main focal point.
I'm gonna stick with it. I'm gonna stick with it because, it's part of my homework now. So I want to definitely see where it goes. And like you said, it's gonna be an interesting juxtaposition to Bloom Into You to kind of see how they're different and everything else. But I definitely feel it's gonna be a bit more of a struggle with certain episodes, I'm sure. And I just gotta see how it turns out.
I'm interested if you end up with the same favorite character as me out of the show.
Right now, my favorite character was the version of
Yuzu before she went to the new school.
Took off her makeup. When she was there and she has her little ghetto hair, her makeup, her nails, her little thing, I was like, oh man, this is so... And
spoilers, that never comes back. But
she was so excited. She's like, new school, new people, gonna finally get my first kiss. Don't have to like BS people anymore. Gonna find a cute boy. And she was just so full of hope. And now, and by the way, that bathtub scene, just not as like a sexy thing. She's sitting in bathtub water, but for some reason the water is yellow. So it looks like
weird.
She's sitting in pee.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
I mentioned the same thing when we were watching it for the first time.
Why is she sitting in pee?
I don't know.
And of all the choices they could have made, at some point, one of the artists said,
I think the walls are yellow. I think that's why it's supposed to be
but
yellow.
It's anime. You can make the water blue. It was a very weird choice. Especially coming off of something like Hokkaido Girls, where the main ghetto girl is wonderful and nice and sweet and amazing, to now this one, which is like off the bat, you feel it. She's a victim. You feel it. And if I feel like we go away from that, she will remind you that she's a victim. And that's the part that I'm going to have issues with, because it's hard to see somebody kind of like victim blame themselves. And especially at such a young age. And I'm sure it does happen. I say it doesn't happen, but even so, it's still hard to see. So we'll continue on and we'll hope for the best.
We'll get updated later on your updated thoughts.
Updated. Well, I'll give you the play-by-play on these two.
I am interested to see if you have the favorite character, the same one as me, and if there are certain characters besides the main two that you don't like out of the show, because I feel like they'll be the same as mine too.
I liked a little bit the girl with the glasses when she first got to the school, who she, at least in a nicer tone, was telling her all the rules that she's breaking. She was like, "So your nails are
not the
wrong."
Not the one with the pigtails.
No, she had glasses. She had a little clipboard.
That's an irrelevant character. I hate to say it, but it's an irrelevant character.
I was like, she was the only one who's telling her what she's doing wrong, but in a nice way. Whereas everyone else was just kind of shitting on her. So.
I was struggling to remember because I think that's literally the only scene she's in. But
too bad.
Well,
do we get to meet the dad?
Maybe.
Because that's another thing. Real quick, hold on. Before we finish this episode, this little quick etchy sketchy Yuri love bite that we have of an episode. She says it's weird hearing her new last name. She's moving to a new place because her mom's got with this guy. And that dinner, she's excited to meet him for the first time. And I think to myself, wait, what? So that means her parents got married and she's never met the guy? So
it happened over a very short period of time, because I was talking to Elaine about it while we were watching. It was like, when did this romance happen? Because like you find out time things between like when the father was here, when the father was there, when he was traveling, things like that. And it's like, did this happen over like 2 weeks?
But even like, if it did, I feel like as a teenager, they'd be like, wait a second, if I'm changing my name and we're moving, yes, I'd like to meet this person. I may not have a say in it as a teenager, but at the very least, let me meet this gosh darn person. Not like, okay, show up.
I'm not going to say whether or not you meet him, but I'm going to say you learn about him at the very least.
I would hope so. I would hope so.
Yes,
I'm assuming he may be a source of some of Toku's things, but
Toku is the other show. That's Bloom Into You. May.
The
one dark-haired secondary character.
And one lighter-haired one. Yeah. I know.
So you will learn about that, and there is a factor with like May's behavior and things like that.
If at this point, it seems like BL as a whole, both on the love stage and the given end, is nicer than Yuri stuff. Like this Yuri stuff is rough.
You can see though where I pulled out the weird things that happened in the BL shows, because I had already watched these two. You can see where it's like, why are some of the same tropes there?
Yeah. There's another BL anime that I just started right now at the recommendation of my wife, and I'm curious to get your thoughts on it if we start another one, just because it's starting off odd, but a little bit still in the realm of sweet. Like there's nothing horrible. No one's been assaulted. Yeah, and it's episode 1, so we're on a good note. Right now.
You're on a good start there.
But yeah, I forget the name right now. I'm gonna get the name and I'll let you know.
Okay, so that's for a future episode, future homework.
Yes.
And I think that's where we're gonna wrap up our first impression video or first impression podcast special, whatever we're calling this. For I like you said love bites before.
It's a love bite.
The Yuri love bites on Miguel's first impression of Citrus and Bloom Into You, and we will update you later on. And we hope that you are kind of liking these little specials that we're doing for like niche
sprinkle
content.
in some seasoning and spice into our regular episodes.
Yes. And if there's any particular series that you feel like fall into interesting ways of displaying romance or love or like GL, BL, yaoi, Yuri, that kind of genre, then let us know and maybe we'll be able to check them out. If we have, as long as it's not on Verve.
I'm sure there's something BL, GL. I don't know if I'm ready completely for more yaoi stuff, but I'm sure there's something that we both haven't seen, because I haven't seen almost any of it. And I'm sure there are things you haven't seen. So it'll be interesting to see something that we both haven't seen, kind of go into it blind.
Absolutely. Because I have other recommendations for GL stuff that's not Yuri, but GL stuff that I'm going to
stay with the BL right now. I think that's a little bit safer for me.
Something that's always safe for you is this podcast content here on the channel. Thanks. It's always safe. It's a safe space for everybody to listen, to participate. This little community that we're building.
We are inclusive of everyone to like, comment, and subscribe.
Yes. Make sure that you ring that bell so you know what's up, and we will catch you in the next episode.
All right. Take care.